Right. Well, even I hadn't got the enormity of all this when I started 3 months ago, although I've been looking at all this for decades. And I have to say, some of it becomes clearer and other parts of it don't become clear at all. So I'm going to go through a few of the earlier things. And you'll notice already, I'm sure you will notice that the title page has changed from the original one. So this is still about two seeds of the woman, the Antichrist seed and the true seed, our Lord Jesus Christ. But the conjunction of Rome and Babylon and Jerusalem has become quite entangled as I've trawled through all of this stuff. I've got a new image. This one is actually far, far better. Not only is it more aesthetically beautiful, although that's, I should not be praising Antichrist's artwork. It shows the woman with the baby Jesus, the false seed here. You notice this little so-called cherub has wings in the guise of Hermes and the messenger, the seed, the keeper of the mysteries, and Hermes, who come to our door every day now, don't they? So this is a European statue. It's obviously a modern statue, but the bull is based on historic statues of the woman riding on the beast. But this is very much a modern interpretation. So this is some idea of what the original ziggurat at Babel looked like. And you remember I told you how Nimrod was one of the first moon worshippers, and this moon worship, this crescent moon worship, is one of the commonest themes throughout virtually all of history into Islam. We also saw how Nimrod was also involved, this incredible tangle of men and gods and men and animals with men's heads and men with animals' heads. And these are actually, you know where the word genius comes from? It comes from evil genie. These are genies up here. Incidentally, who gave Carl Jung his information. He said that he got them from genia. So we have this incredible tangle here of Satan, dragons, serpents, caribs, the four living creatures, animal man gods and man animal gods. And we see that carried on through history of our witches and shamans who shape-shifted into animal forms, and witches had their familiars. And so this is a very common, it's man going to God via animals, or God coming down to man. God I use in the quote unquote angels, avatars, messengers of God, coming down to people in all these different, so my internet connection is unstable. I've never had that before. I know I'm unstable, but I didn't know the internet was as well. Anyway, you'll all be well familiar with this sort of thing. Don't need to go through that. The four parts of the statue and the four beasts of Daniel, which translated later into Revelation. I also showed you this one slide, which shows you the four beast areas. And I think the folly of saying that something like New York or Washington is Babylon, it's all part of Babylon. But the beast areas in the Bible are always based on what we might call Eurasia, from Britain all the way through to India, when we look at the Greco-Persian empires. So these areas are always centered, and they're always centered on Babylon and Jerusalem. And the final one here just happens to have Rome in the middle, which is, oh, by the way, this bit here, if you can look at the bottom right corner of what is labeled the Roman Empire, I don't know if you've seen this. Have you ever seen this map? This is what Islam calls, it's on my main camera, it's what Islam calls Greater Syria. Of course, there's no room for Israel in Islam's Great Assyria, and it's more or less the same as this bottom right corner of the so-called Holy Roman Empire, which, as you know, was neither Holy Roman nor an empire. I went to the thing about Zeus as the white bull abducting Europa and from Phoenicia or Lebanon and taking her to Europe, and Europe was named after this Phoenician goddess. And then we looked at the straightforward, sorry, the straightforward reading of the statues. I don't know if we went through this one or not. I'm going to go through this one anyway. In Daniel 2, we've got Nebuchadnezzar's dream of the four-part statue, and they of course relate to the four beasts in Daniel 7 and then through into Revelation. And so the final part of Daniel's statue has 2 legs and 10 toes, as we shall touch on a little bit later. In Daniel 7, the fourth beast has 10 horns, including that little horn that comes up against them. And that's just the same, literally the same as in Revelation 13, where the first beast is identical to the dragon's beast. It's got these 7 heads and 10 horns, and this one little horn or head that comes up amongst them. But it's slain and it's healed. And it conquers and it rules the earth, including wearing out the saints, just as it says in Daniel, for 42 months, 3.5 times, 1260 years, however you want to see that. Now, the thing is, historically, most people saw this, including the Reformation, the Reformers, as Rome, because the first beast, we know, is slain, goes into the pit, the second beast comes out. It's an image of the first beast, and that is exactly what Rome did, papal Rome did, by taking all this information from pagan Rome, but simply turn it into a full-time religion. And then we get, as you're well aware, I'm sure, in Revelation 13, the first beast was from the sea. And of course, Revelation is a book of symbols, and Revelation tells us that the sea are the restless seas of people. But the second beast is from the earth. And that's why I see this. The first one as political system, as it were. The second one is more of a religious or spiritual, quote unquote, system. And the fact that the second beast has 2 horns like a lamb, just like the Pope's fish hat, and speaks like a dragon, most people immediately saw that was talking about papal Rome. But it's people make an image of the first beast, and then we've got the mark of the beast, 666 number of man and beast, and any who will not worship that image or that beast will be killed. Obviously, that we'll go into that a bit later on. But I must point out that one of the things I had realized with some relief is that Babylon is slaughtered before the end. Babylon, in fact, is slaughtered not only by God, but by the beasts themselves, the beast itself. So I don't have to go into the end of the Antichrist beast, just go into the end of the Babylonian beast, because that's how complicated it is. As I think I showed in one of the other slides, all the aspects of the beast are also the aspects of Babylon the Great as well. So it's most certainly not straightforward. And of course, that second beast is written by Mystery Babylon, the whore of Babylon, the harlot Babylon. I'll read through this. I'm sure you're all familiar with it, or you've probably got it open in front of you now. Revelation 17. And there came one of the 7 angels which had the 7 vials or bowls, and talked with me, saying unto me, Come hither, I will show unto thee the judgment of the great whore or harlot that sitteth upon many waters, with whom the kings of the earth have committed fornication, and the inhabitants of the earth have been made drunk with the wine of fornication. So he carried me away in the spirit into the wilderness. I saw a woman sitting on a scarlet beast, full of names of blasphemy, having 7 heads and 10 horns. And the woman was arrayed in purple and scarlet colours, and decked with gold and precious stones and pearls, having a golden cup in her hand, full of abominations and filthiness of her fornication. Upon her forehead was the name, Mystery, Babylon the Great, the mother of harlots and abominations of the earth. I saw a woman drunk with the blood of the saints and with the blood of the martyrs of Jesus. And when I saw her, I wondered with great admiration. And the angel said unto me, Wherefore didst thou marvel? I will tell thee the mystery of the woman, and of the beast that carrieth her, which hath 7 heads and 10 horns. The beast that thou sawest was and is not, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit. I'll just point out there that this is a parody of Jesus at the beginning of Revelation, who was and is to come. And this is like a sick parody on that. The beast who sawest was and is not, and shall come, and shall ascend out of the bottomless pit, and go into perdition. And they that dwell on earth shall wonder, whose names were not written in the book of life from the foundation of the world. And they behold the beast that was and is not, and yet is. And here is the mind which hath wisdom, the 7 heads of 7 mountains on whom the woman sitteth. And there are 7 kings, 5 are fallen, and 1 is, and the other is not yet come. And when he cometh, he must continue a short space. And that one, I believe, is the little horn. And the beast that was and is not, even he is the 8th, and is of the 7, and goeth into perdition. I think this next, oh no, I'll stop after the next slide. And the 10 horns which thou sawest are 10 kings which have received no kingdom as yet, but receive power as kings 1 hour with the beast. These have one mind, and shall give their power and strength unto the beast. He shall make war with the Lamb, and the Lamb shall overcome them. For he is Lord of lords and King of kings, and they that are with him are called, and chosen, and faithful. And he saith unto me, The waters that thou sawest, where the horse sitteth, are peoples, and multitudes of nations and tongues. And the 10 horns which thou sawest upon the beast, these shall hate the whore, and shall make her desolate and naked, and shall eat her flesh, and burn her with fire. For God hath put it in their hearts to fulfill his will, and to agree, and give their kingdom unto the beast, until the words of God shall be fulfilled. Now I've added the next bit, of course. I think this is possibly the same as the kings of the north and the kings of the south, which defeat what is generally thought of as Antichrist in Daniel 11. And the woman which thou sawest is the great city, which reigneth over the kings of the earth. And there I've added a little bit from later on in Revelation, because I'm not a pre-tribulation rapture person. I think we'll still be there, which is why God is saying, come out of her, my people, when Babylon is being destroyed. So, right, well, we looked at these last time, so I don't need to go into them now. There's only one new thing here. The keys of Janus and Cybele, the king and queen of heaven, are said absorbed by Rome and Peter of Rome, but Peter of Rome, Petra Romanus, was worshipped in Rome long before Peter the Apostle came along. Petrus Romanus was the name of the one that had the keys to the mystery. So he's Hermes as well. And Tammuz and all these other gods, once again, they're all the same thing. They've got the keys of the mysteries, the Babylonian mysteries. And this Petrus Romanus, I've forgotten, if any of you know about the prophecies about the last pope, seemingly from a Roman Catholic, he said the last pope would be Petrus Romanus. and Pope Francis thinks he is that person at the time. But this last pope is also in the Jewish Zohar. So that's the only new thing that I've added to that particular thing. And then there's another second half of it there. And these are the ones that I showed last week, so 4 weeks ago. So I'm not going to dwell on them now, because I'm just going to go through this and then we'll stop. And I've probably showed this one before as well, but I'm no longer certain. I've been juggling around with so many different slides and trying to adapt them and understand what's going on. I've got about 7 different versions of this talk, and they seem to change overnight. Now, people talk about Vatican II reforming the papacy, but it didn't reform the papacy at all. All it did was reiterate what was in the first one. It's basically the complete supremacy of the Pope over every denomination, every religion and belief, but especially the Eastern Orthodox and the separated brethren of Protestantism. And he and his successors kissed the Quran, and now even have the Quran in the apostate church, as they also invite Muslims to speak in the Western church, as if they never have a Christian speaking in an Eastern Muslim church. I don't think so. And by the way, I've forgotten where I put it, but it's possible. I'm thinking there's a possibility, just a possibility, that the 2 legs of Nebuchadnezzar's statue are talking about Christianity, quote unquote, and Islam. Certainly the 10 toes have to include Islam. There can be no doubts in my mind about that. So all religions will be recognized in the New Babylon, however absurd or pagan. Remember John Paul II, when he had his big get-together, he had fire worshippers and snake worshippers on the stage with him, as well as most of the religions of the world. So any religion will do, as long as you recognize the Pope as Pontifex Maximus, which of course was pagan Rome's heads. Now, I pointed out that Julius Caesar's ceremony, he thought he was the son of Venus. He thought he was the son of the Queen of Heaven, i.e., he thought he was the seed of the woman. Now, whether he would have seen it in those terms or not, of course, is highly doubtful. Now, talking about Allah, this other leg, or at least these other 5 toes, if you want to put it like that, and talking about reproduction, this is a quote from the Quran here. Surely nothing is hidden from him in the earth or in the heaven. He it is who shapes you in the wombs as he likes. There is no God but he, the mighty and wise. Of course, like quite a few things in the Quran, that bit could well have come out of the Psalms about David being known in the womb. But Jesus, Isa, that's Jesus in the Quran, is of course not the Jesus of the Bible, because he's most certainly not the Son of God in the Quran. The Quran says God forbid that God should have a son, that he should have a son. But the Jesus Isa in the Quran returns in the second coming to fight Gog and Magog and their version of the Antichrist, El Messiah, or Ad-Dajjal, the false Messiah, the false prophet. So, and of course, he establishes peace and justice on earth after he's killed all the Jews, Christians, and any other non-compliant kafirs, as they call it. Kafir is a non-believer, although it has another racist term in Southern Africa. In the Quran, it's simply talking about non-believers. So the Quran says that Jesus will return, but he'll return. Even that's confused. Does he return with Muhammad? It's not really clear. He's returning to fight Gog and Magog and the false Messiah, or I won't call it the Antichrist, although that's what it basically means. Now, I think I shall stop the sharing there and take any retorts or objections or questions or whatever. Any remarks?
If you want to ask folks, you'll have to unmute yourselves.
No, I'm dumbfounded, Philip. I don't recall hearing about this this big party that John Paul had with everybody there.
At Assisi, back in the 90s, was it?
We must have been in some jungle.
Right.
But when we were in South Africa it would have been 1999, the Parliament of World Religions took place, which was an eye-opener for me, and I was absolutely appalled. But it was on TV all evening, every evening in South Africa, and people of various faiths from around the world came, but they had whirling dervishes and sangomas and everybody doing their tricks on TV. And it was a big deal, and it was good to see the Muslims and the Roman Catholics demonstrating together against abortion, which was they were there in Cape Town with all their placards opposed to abortion. But it was absolutely horrific, and it was the first I'd ever heard of the Parliament of World Religions, but it's been around for quite some time. And the Catholics were there cheering it on. It was awful. Really awful.
Because they hoped to run it, of course. That's why they organised the one at Assisi. I've forgotten the date, actually. It might have been the 80s, not the 90s.
I've just found something on the internet that suggests it was October 27th, 1986.
That's about right, yes. I mean, there were witch doctors. Everybody was there. There was a Red Indian chief with his pipe of peace, offering his pipe of peace to heaven and what have you. The point is, of course, that as in the Roman Empire, you could have any religion you liked as long as you recognize the Pontifex Maximus. That's the point. And that's what the Pope is doing now. The Pope has just had his big interfaith. Did you see it? His big interfaith council at COP Out 19. You know. Although it wasn't up in Scotland, I think it was in Italy. He had a big interfaith get together, and of course he's come out with a green agenda with little Greta. You know, Greta Thunberg has met with him, and she approves of the Pope as well. You know, as he's a very green Pope. There we are. So, anything and everything will do as long as it's obedient to the Pontifex Maximus.
Randall, that thing that you found online for the 27th of October 1986, was that a Parliament of World Religions? Something else?
Assisi?
Assisi. I haven't actually, just let me have a better look. I haven't seen its proper.
Well, I'll look and see if it's all the same.
The meeting of prayer for peace, first held by John Paul II, and on that date.
Okay.
And I'll see if there's another thing here that seems to reference it, but I'll have to look at it. Well, that's the one I've just looked at. And
they're all at it, aren't they? Canterbury Cathedral has all these pagan altars that they can wheel in and out, depending on what blasphemers they're entertaining.
Yeah, there was in Salisbury Cathedral, there was some dreadful somethings that they had, sculptures of hares and a whole load of other things a few years back, where we happened to be there to see the Magna Carta, basically. But yeah, the other thing that happened in relation, I don't know if it was in relation just to the one in Cape Town in 99 or thereabouts, it must have been 99,
It was 99.
was that they set up a whole load of posts, square posts, about four or
that's right.
5 foot high, something like
Forgot about
that.
those. Yeah.
And they had words on them that I can't remember, but it was obviously promoting this thing, and they were scattered all over the place. And sometime, in 2000, we actually saw 2 of these posts, one in Tiberias and another one at Masada. Masada? Yeah.
Forgotten about them.
And they were points where you should go and pray. So they were effectively high places of some kind.
Yeah. Well,
Okay. I've found another article that says it was actually the World Day of Prayer for Peace. It was the first gathering, interfaith type gathering for peace, and I think that has now been taken over more by the United Nations, and I have a link somewhere to the one from this year. And it was done on video, but the message of it was not pleasant at all. I can't remember exactly it, but it really made me think, under the name of secularism, we're going into a one world religion. It was him and some Grand Mufti, but I can't remember which one, that were very good friends. The Pope and some Grand Mufti.
Thank you.
Thank you, Randall.
right.
Anything else, folks, or shall we ask for it to carry on?
I just wanted to add that when Philip was reading verse 4, and the woman was clothed in purple and scarlet and adorned with gold, I was thinking, I've seen a lot of bishops look like that. Maybe this is going to be a transgender, because it says it's a woman. Maybe it's going to be a transgender pope.
Sure to be.
It's a bit rude, but that's what it brought to my mind.
We ain't seen nothing yet. Right. It's certainly going to be very, very strong on the feminine, without a shadow of a doubt. Yeah. Shall I ramble on?
You
Yes,
carry on,
please.
Philip.
Okay. So we come to the vexed question of back in the old Stone Age, when I was a Jehovah's Witness, we had a very, very simple view of an Antichrist and what have you. And it really isn't that simple at all, because the aspects of the Antichrist seem to be shared equally between beast, whores, false prophets, and the image. So we're going to have a look, try and unpick a bit of that now. So one of the Antichrist things is changing times and seasons. So the popes have already changed times and seasons. They've changed the calendar. Remember that pagan Rome first changed the calendar, and then papal Rome changed the calendar. They changed the Saturday Sabbath. They've changed Christ's birthday to Christmas. They've changed Passover to Easter. But Islam has also changed the calendar. They go from the start of Islam, their calendar, and they've changed the Sabbath day. And I've not gone into any other things that they might have changed. So both Catholicism and Islam there have changed times and seasons. And that's one of the attributes of the Antichrist, or Antichrists. They've repeatedly put their names positions above the Most High. Mary, too. Mary is now the Mother of God. They put Mary above God. The Catholics, that is. Both of them have worn out the saints. They've genocided the saints by the million. Remember that Daniel and Revelation both say that the saints of the Most High will be worn out. And Islam, of course, the one thing you can say about Catholicism is that they've stopped the Crusades. Officially, Islam has never stopped its Crusades. They're still going on. You know. They worship idols and an image. I pointed this out before. Image in Babylonian is Semele, which just happens to be the same as their mother goddess. So the word for Semele is image and mother goddess in Babylonian. Now, I personally, at the moment, still think that the image is most certainly going to be female. It could well be Mary. This is Mary in inverted commas, of course. It's Fatima, it's Mary, it's the Queen of Heaven, you name it. Artemis, Isis, any name you care to give it. As with Islam, of course, they've got a vexed relationship with women in the Quran. But in the Kaaba, there were the three daughters of Allah, the satanic verses. And Fatima was the name of one of Muhammad's daughters. Of course, one of the most famous images of Mary is the Virgin of Fatima that was seen in Portugal. And Portugal was once under under Islamic rule. That place is called Fatima. And that's where Mary appeared, I think it was 1917, with all these messages. When the sun moved, thousands of people saw the sun shaking and moving. So they're pretty good at signs and wonders. So they're both worshipping idols in an image. And the Kaaba, of course, contains the image, which is actually a meteorite, the black stone. So Rome has turned the last summer into literal cannibalism. I didn't realize until I'd started this that cannibal is priest of Baal. So they're doing literal cannibalism when they turn the Last Supper into the literal body and blood of Christ. And they do lots of false signs and wonders. As in Islam, we are supposedly made from God's blood. We're not made from the dust of the ground, as in Genesis. We're made from God's blood. And Muhammad allegedly split the moon once, and he's going to split the moon again on Judgment Day. What that means, I'm not sure whether it's to do with the crescent moon, showing the crescent moon. Remember, lots of these images of the woman standing on the crescent moon, because it's also September, October. It's also the astrological sign of Virgo. I've not even gone into that, because that's all mixed in this incredible stew as well. And of course, at the end of the so-called prophecies of Islam, the rocks say to the returning Jesus, "Quick, come here, there's a Jew hidden behind me. Come and kill a Jew." These are the talking rocks. And of course, there's another incredible blasphemy on the Bible, where the living stones, we are the living stones. And Jesus said, if the Jews didn't speak, then these stones will cry out. So both of these two legs, if it is Catholicism and Islam, Islam doesn't forbid to marry, but it certainly messes around with marriage. And I bet you didn't know that Lent, we probably didn't know that Lent was a pagan ceremony. Of course, regulating the diet. You're only allowed to eat fish on a Friday. Of course, that's a bit like a lot of vegetarians now who say, "Oh, I'm a vegetarian, I only eat fish." I think that was invented by Rome as well. But Islam really plays around with the sacred act of marriage, with polygamy and whoredom unbridled. Of course, there's their halal meat and Ramadan, where they forbid you to eat during the day. If you've ever been in a Muslim country in Ramadan, my advice is don't go during Ramadan, because they look miserable all day long in the heat. And then at 6 o'clock, they eat and drink themselves stupid all night long, making a lot of noise into the bargain as well. So Ramadan is a real hypocritical celebration. So Rome has long been recognized as Antichrist. scarlet-clad mystery Babylon whore on 7 hills, drunk on the blood of the prophets, riding the Euro beast, as I call it. So I'm going to go into these. I'm just rushing through that because I go into each of these individually. Islam is also spread by the sword. Mecca is surrounded by 7 hills. And Mecca and Islam has invaded the Holy Roman Empire. In fact, still has half of it, if you count the full extent of the beast kingdom. Islam still has half of it, which is why I think it might be the beast's other leg, and it's certainly part of the 10 toes. As I say, I'm going to go through these individual bits anyway. Now, the point about the Antichrist, which I feel quite strongly about, I might be wrong, but the Antichrist comes out of us, the church. There's no doubts in my mind that only 2 people personally possessed by Satan, the red dragon, and both come out of us. First was Judas, the second will be the final Antichrist. Because all false Christs and false prophets come out of the church. They can't be false Christs or false prophets if they don't come out of the church. But that's my personal belief, and I'll be going into that anyway. So the point that most people would object to nowadays is it was all very well for the reformers to imagine that the beast was the Antichrist, but nowadays people are not so sure about that. And of course, there's a lot of sympathy for Rome, which exhibits itself in strange ways. You might remember I talked about Jonathan Safati, who was critiquing the Two Babylons book and saying that there was nothing like the persecution done by the Catholic Church that people say. And so there's a lot of people trying to get Rome out of this nowadays. So we're going to look at what the main criteria is. It's a city. So can we say we've got a city on 7 hills? Now, Rio de Janeiro is a city on 7 hills. Sheffield is. Washington. Jerusalem is. And Mecca is. So we'll be looking at those as we go along. Of course, because although I have no doubts about where the Lord is returning to, Jerusalem, and which is his piece of real estate on earth, Jerusalem, it's still, until the Lord returns, it's going to be an absolute hotbed of fighting and adultery and false beliefs and what have you. And it might well be where the final Antichrist takes up residence, because it's the city, of course, of the 3 quote unquote great faiths, Abrahamic faiths. But it's a city that it's the only sovereign state that's a city. The Vatican is the only sovereign state that's also a city. You could say out of all of them, it reigns and whores because it adulterates with kings, it promoted and it disposes rulers. Not anymore, of course, but it has done throughout its long history. And its world land grabs. At one point, the popes divided the world into 2 and said on that side, Portugal will have all that. On the other side, Spain can have all that. So it's certainly the only city that's ever done all those sorts of things. The woman is clothed in scarlet and purple, though I'm sure we could find several religions that are clothed in scarlet and purple, but these are the colors of so-called Imperial Rome. So they was also the colors of Imperial Rome before they became the colors of Papal Rome. And it's one of the very, very wealthiest. This is one of the biggest and wealthiest cities in the world, with the golden cup, the jewels, the Mary. I put Mary carved there. There's one church, I think in Portugal, that has 365 dresses covered in jewels. Why don't they sell them and give the money to the poor? It's incredibly wealthy, and it's still begging for money. You probably know that that's why the Reformation started. One of the main reasons, one of the main objections to Rome was the indulgences to get people out of non-existent purgatory. It's a city that's also a mother of harlots. Of course, the amount of damage caused to people by this non-biblical celibacy by Rome is absolutely appalling. It's still, I think there are 250,000 babies were given away during Franco's Catholic Spain. 250,000 babies are still trying to trace and were given away by Catholic homes, as it were. And a lot of them were sold. So it certainly caused so much harlotry and fornication and what have you, and caused immense problems because of denying that priests, in fact, that all of us should be married, although I never quite got round to it. Anyway, a city that's drunk with the blood of the saints is responsible for all the blood spilled on earth. Now it's interesting, it doesn't make good reading, but Jesus said to the Jews, they were responsible for all the blood spilled on earth, from Abel to the cross. Didn't actually say to the cross, but that's Matthew 23:35. So now we have a city that's responsible for all the blood spilled on earth. And before that, it was Israel that was responsible for all the blood spilled on earth. Not that they killed everybody, of course, any more than Rome killed anybody. This is speaking figuratively in one way. So it's a city, it's also Mystery Babylon. It's a whore riding the beast and the image with the mark of the beast. And we keep coming back to this bit again. This beast is now the second beast with two horns. Speaks like a dragon, but it has two horns like a lamb. You probably also know that the cross-shaped pallium that the popes wear is made of wool. And again, it's a travesty on the fact that Jesus is the real shepherd. And Mystery Babylon, Rome calls the Mass the Mysterium Fidei, or the Mystagogy. It's the mystery where the body of Christ is supposedly changed into the body and blood of Christ. So I'll just go back on that. Previous. So I would say that although these other places up here all have 7 hills, Rome is the one that most fits the bill, as it were, here. As I say, what has been missed out, I think, is the fact that something that Jacob Prasch recommends in this book, I don't know if you've seen this book, Shadows of the Beast, although it's his usual long-winded diatribe. It's got a lot of very good stuff in it. And he is also, I would think, fairly convinced that this final Babylon has to be at least half Islam, because it's doing all the same things, if in a slightly different way. And the way they're getting together now, of course, is through Fatima and their worship of Mary. Islam is very strong on Mary worship, which might come as a surprise to someone. Now, this is the other book that I've just reread again. I've not read this for about 20, 30 years, and I've got a lot of information from this, but I don't think it goes far enough, because it barely mentions Islam at all. And we all know this diagram. I'm sure we know this. This was the poster that was actually issued by the European Union. Now, tellingly, it wasn't issued for very long. As you can see, for a start, the so-called stars here have been inverted to make a satanic pentagram. The building at Brussels is based on Bruegel's painting of the unfinished Tower of Babel. As was pointed out last Saturday, a talk by Ian Moulton, the people down here are blockheads. I don't know if you noticed that on the poster. They're blockheads, as if they're all being taken for a ride, you know. And the blurb there is Europe, many tongues and one voice. So the people that designed that poster for the EU most certainly thought that they were reversing Babel. But, and this is another common objection, a lot of people are not very happy with just one Antichrist, because John, in 1 John, was quite clear He says, children, this is the last hour. And just as you have heard that the Antichrist is coming, so now many Antichrists have appeared. This is how we know it is the last hour. They went out from us, but they did not belong to us. Again, the Antichrist comes out of us. I'm fairly convinced of that. What if they had belonged to us? They would have remained with us. But their departure made it clear that none of them belonged to us. You, however, have an anointed from the Holy One, and all of you know the truth. Who is the liar? It is whoever denies that Jesus is the Christ. Such a person is the Antichrist, denying the Father and the Son. That's 1 John 2. And so Islam, of course, denies that God forbid that he should have a son. And the papacy, as I mentioned earlier, has elevated Mary above God. And when you see some of these so-called images, these apparitions of Mary, she has Jesus as a little baby alongside her. She's the mother of God. And in fact, in one of the so-called visions, I think at Medjugorje, which is, I've not pronounced that very well, I think that's in the old Yugoslavia, she had Jesus alongside her as a baby, telling everybody to put their trust completely and utterly in Mary. She is the mediatrix. She is the one with the graces, etc. She is the way to God. This apparition of Mary actually had Jesus as a baby saying all of that.
I'm not
I remember
sure.
my mother coming back from holiday. Coming back from holiday in Yugoslavia, saying what a wonderful place this place was, you know, where the Virgin had appeared. Well, my mother wasn't remotely, she wasn't remotely religious. Now we're going on to other scriptures here. Now there were also false prophets amongst the people, just as there will be false teachers amongst you. They will secretly introduce destructive heresies, even denying the master who brought them, bringing swift destruction on themselves. That's 2 Peter 2. And doing false signs and wonders, Matthew 24:24, to deceive even, if possible, the elect, which I think means that they can. And we know from 2 Thessalonians 9 that the man of sin will be there with false signs and wonders. So I think I'll stop sharing there, because I've probably said quite a lot of things there that some of you possibly don't believe. But so far away.